Hello, and welcome to Thinking Boldly. This is the podcast series for the Consilium Institute. I am retired Judge Julie Field, and I'm here with my partner and Consilium co-founder Heidi Webb. And we are very excited today to have as our guest Gabrielle Clemens, who will be talking with us about her experience with Consilium and the work that she does with clients as a financial professional. So Gabrielle, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. And we're just so excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Julie and Heidi. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, it is such a pleasure. I've known Gabrielle for a while, and every day I sort of feel like I learn something new still because she is vibrant and ever-changing and ever-growing. She's a lawyer, a certified divorce financial analyst, author, and podcast host, managing director at RBC Wealth Management. Gabrielle's transitioned to wealth management from the practice of law after her son was born and she needed more flexibility in her own schedule. Gabrielle focuses her wealth management practice on helping men, women, and couples structure financial settlements in the divorce process and post-divorce wealth management, budgeting, and planning for college funding, retirement, and estate planning. Gabrielle, I am so happy, like Julie, that you are here and joining us today.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I know you were an early adopter of the Consilium process, and you joined us right at the beginning of the founding of the Consilium Institute. And some of the conversations that I know we've had over the years about the work that you do with clients and the expectations that you set with clients, I think really tell a story about what clients need when they come to you as part of the divorce process and kind of what your vision of that is. Can you explain to us a little bit about kind of how you work with clients and how you help them set expectations for what they can expect as part of the financial process that you go through with them?
Sure. Happy to. So my background is, I practiced law for several years, divorce, trust and estate, tax. And as I transitioned over to financial services, one of the reasons why I did that was because I felt like people weren't understanding the financial consequences of the decisions that they were making throughout the divorce process. And the financial decisions start from the beginning. Who you hire as an attorney, who is your accountant, what have you paid in taxes, what is your income, what is your spouse's income, what are your investments, what is your mortgage? I mean, I've done this for so many years now. I mean, back at a time where alimony and child support were tax deductible, alimony, not child support, but alimony was tax deductible. Not having a grip on what the consequences were of agreeing to certain components of your settlement really had financial consequences moving forward. So my goal at the time was to reach a point where I would not hear, I wish someone had told me post-divorce. I wish someone had explained to me. Nobody told me. And it's not written in the agreement that alimony is tax deductible or tax includable. I had no idea. That's not fair. And, invariably it was the stay-at-home moms who were out of the workforce, who didn't understand how Social Security played into their retirement planning and what it meant that they were only going to get 50% of their former spouse, and also the same-sex marriage issues and those divorces that are happening now. And they're very, they're many of the same financial issues, but many of them are different. And so when I decided to focus on just the financial component, because that really was my background, and just take on clients who needed to understand, which is them, how this is going to play out in the post-divorce lifestyle of both individuals, then it started to take on a life of its own. And I became a CDFA in 2006. I think I was maybe the second person in Boston to receive that designation. It didn't really exist. So so to watch it grow to now everybody needs a CDFA is great for me, because I think more education is important for people going through this this dire process. So I wrote my book, Marriage is About Love, Divorce is About Money, because frankly, I had a lot of there it is. I had a great deal of information that I just had to put down on paper. I sort of got tired of repeating myself, and I thought, well, this is one way to at least get the information out. And it's really an overview of, health insurance. What is a quadro, which is a qualified domestic relations order? How do you hire, an attorney? What do you look for? Can you interview any of them or many of them? Can you switch lawyers? What is is that a smart thing to do? When do we do that? And what is the consequence of doing that? So, all of these different components of getting divorced is what I was hoping to help people navigate, because it's so expensive and it takes a lot of time, and you become very involved in the whole drama of getting divorced, and your team of individuals, everybody is helping you get divorced, and you're not ultimately focusing on what it means to be divorced.
So I hear a couple of themes here that are interesting. One that I didn't know, actually, that you were the first or one of the first CDFAs in Boston. Not surprising, because I think we should have a little caption under Gabrielle Clemens, early adopter. Because it's the same thing. Like, you saw something in Consilium, I think, that appealed to you, and you saw that this could help people, and were eager and sort of willing to sort of jump in feet first, sort of early. And I think that's something that is a huge attribute for your clients, because you're willing to sort of get in the weeds, and you're willing to say to them, this is new territory for you, and it's okay. How do you sort of think of getting into this territory, where someone's been and where they're going? How do you sort of help someone think about that transition? Are there analogies that come to mind, or things that you say to people that you think might help them with that transitional point in their lives?
Well, I think it's important to go back to what's important to them. So one thing they don't teach you in law school is listening skills. And that's something that I learned beautifully through Consilium. I mean, they just, the nice thing about Consilium, it teaches you how to be a real advisor, and teaches you how to listen, how to actively listen. And a lot of time is put into that training. So I really appreciate that. Whereas the CDFA, a lot of training is put into, into the financial part, which not most lawyers don't have. So we're filling in the gaps of this divorce process, of the process of becoming divorced. And we're filling in the knowledge gaps. And that's why I love Consilium so much. And I was an early adopter because, therapists may not understand the financials. Lawyers may not understand what a therapist does. And again, in law school, you're not taught to listen and ask questions. So in this process, really listening to people, and everybody's different. The law is supposed to apply, and Judge Julie better than anybody. The law is supposed to apply to everybody, equally and without discrimination. And that's sort of a staple. The law is what it is. It's codified. We construe it through the application of case law, but it is what it is. And financials are very similar. But when you start to listen to people and understand what is important to them, then you can draw out the components of their lives that is important to them, maybe prior to their marriage. Maybe they've been influenced by their partner about things that never were important to them. Maybe they didn't care about a country club membership or owning a boat or, camping. Maybe these are things that are new, and we have to get this person back to what's important to them. Who are they? So that in their post-divorce life, they can be living their best life and not their spouse's life. I mean, we're always told you have to compromise, you have to, flex with your spouse. You're a team now. Well, now you're no longer a team. You're co-parenting, and you're still, if you have children, or if you're still parenting your children, which I guess maybe you always will be. But for the most part, really listening to people and helping them understand what their post-divorce life is going to look like and feel like in real terms, and make sure they understand that, so that we can get to the other side and saying, yeah, Gabrielle told me this was going to happen, or Gabrielle told me I couldn't afford the house. I was stubborn. I wanted to keep it, because ultimately not every decision is going to be right, even though it's right financially. It might just not be the right time or the right place, or, the right market to be selling your house or buying a new house, or whatever the case may be. But I feel as though my role is to inform people and educate them and prepare them. And what they can do with that information is up to them. But the Consilium process has certainly been critical in helping me listen and think even more so from the future, and walk back to today, and how we're going to bridge that transition in the most efficient and supportive and positive way.
Right. So sometimes it seems to me, and you reflected this a little bit in some of the things you were saying, is that people get so caught up in the process of the divorce that they don't really look past what it's going to look like afterwards. And it sort of strikes me that a lot of times people who get engaged get caught up in the process of getting married without really looking at what it might look like afterwards. What do you think about that analogy? Does that make any sense?
It makes so much sense. And I actually had a client say this to me. And because all of a sudden you're looking at this person that you're divorcing, and you're saying, I can't even believe I married this person. I can't even believe, like, nobody liked him. My friends didn't like him. My parents didn't like him. Nobody liked him. What did I see? And I actually had somebody tell me this, and she said, we got engaged, and then my family took over, my mother took over, and it was all about this big wedding we were having. And I lost sight of the person that I was marrying, because it wasn't about being married or, living as a wife, as a mother. I was the bride. I was the bride, and I wasn't the wife. I hadn't become the wife yet. So it's the whole process that takes over, with the band and the food and the gown and the bridesmaids and the bachelorette party and everything. And it becomes a family affair, and it's terrifying. And then these days when I say, okay, so, what about the prenup? Now everybody's children are getting married and they're thrilled. And I'm excited for them if that's how they feel, but we have to heed the lessons that we've learned, and maybe, understand that we don't want mistakes in the next generation. And, boy, have they thought about a prenup. And you would have thought I had just, burned the turkey or something. They look with jaws dropped. It's like, no, they're going to be fine. And it's like, well, statistics don't really say that, but okay, because we're all caught up in the positive nature of the hope and future of our children through marriage. So again, we're continuing the cycle. And then with divorce, it's the same way. We hire an attorney. We talk to a lot of attorneys. We talk to our friends and our family and our coworkers and, everybody about who to hire and what do they cost and what is their reputation. And it becomes this process of divorcing takes on a life of its own. And it's my role, I feel, to help them understand, what the post-divorce life is going to look like and feel like, and how the cash flow is going to look. And I am happy that, when I first start with a client, if it's going to take a couple of years, they start with, this is my house. I'm keeping the house. And by the end, they're like, yeah, it's going on the market in 2 weeks. As part of the divorce, because they're just over it, because they've understood, they've become educated, and they understand the pros and cons. And most people just want a new chapter. They want to start fresh, and they don't want to be forced to do anything. But if that's what makes the most sense and that's good for them, then I think that they start to pivot in their conviction that they need to keep the family home.
Mm-hmm.
I think psychologically, though, and I think you've hit on this so well, is that, when you make a decision by default, it never feels as good as when you make a decision and you're the agent of that decision. So I think with Consilium and with how you're applying it, you're helping people prospectively think, what do I want my restructured life to look like? And how does the house fit or not into that when I'm divorced and living alone and my kids are in college, say, versus what it was like living in this house when they were little. And I think when people can back into that with their own logic and their own thinking and some more perspective financially, they're much more able to happily put it on the market than when it becomes a war between lawyers and you just can't afford it and no one's going to stay there and who's going to buy out somebody and no one wants to buy out either person and the interest rates have gone up and it gets into this whole cycle of arguing about the sort of paradigm of what the house means to each person in the course of the divorce, as opposed to who they will be after the divorce and how their sort of life will look like afterward. And I think that's a huge gift that you give people when you give them that perspective.
Well, and it's partly in the beginning, people are very fearful, right? They haven't met with an attorney since they probably bought their home. That was probably, or maybe they did some estate planning, and estate planning attorneys are a relatively docile group. They're not litigators. They're very friendly, happy people that, help you decide how you're going to, care for your family, in the afterlife. So they're not designed. They don't attract necessarily an aggressive group. But when you start in the divorce process, it is very aggressive, and there's a lot of fear of the unknown, and it's expensive. So I think as people become more comfortable, and it's typically around money, as they become more comfortable in their post-divorce lifestyles and what that's going to look like, then they can start to let go of some of the fear-based convictions that they have, and start to open their mind to some alternatives, their mind and their heart to alternatives. And maybe they start dating somebody nice, and they start to think like, okay, this is going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And that's what people want to understand. And they will be okay. I really haven't found anybody who's been okay.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you touched on was that you help people get back in touch with who they are, with things that they liked before, right? And sort of trying to get back to those things. Are there some key questions that you ask your clients to help them get back to that root of figuring out who they are and who they were and who they are and who they want to be?
Yes. And there's a bank of questions that I learned through Consilium, because they don't teach this in law school. And it's sort of, tell me about how your family vacationed growing up. Really get to step back to, who were you before this divorce? Who were you before this marriage? Who were you before you were even dating? Who were you, when you were 7 years old? And how did your family vacation? How did your family feel about money? Did you grow up, with enough? Did you always feel lack? Did you have insecurities around food and money and things like that? And bringing people back to who they are, I think is a critical component of the Consilium process, and we can build on that. And so we can restructure the future built on that belief, as opposed to what their new belief is. And I mean, I know very wealthy people who feel as though, they can't move out of the garage, out of the basement apartment, because they grew up in the Depression, or, they always feel as their spouse always feels as though the sky is falling, and they're fearful. So you take on all of the beliefs and the systems that your spouse, your spouse is living in, and you try to extricate from that and say, well, who are you? And again, it's from the work through Consilium that as a practitioner, as an advisor, has taught me how to step back in a way that, I never appreciated before. So that's been a real game changer. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
And we are grateful to have you be part of this growing community. There's a quote of yours that I love, and I think it sort of embraces a lot of your philosophy. But I wanted you to expand on it a little bit if you'd like to, which is, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And,
Yeah.
we're talking a lot about future here and about dating and about who we surround ourselves with. And what about that resonates for you?
Yeah, as I get older, I'm very cognizant of the people around me. And what do they say? The 5 people around you, is going to determine many things in your future. But I just spending time with Consilium and the types of people who are interested in Consilium. And it's not just for business, and it's not just for, networking, or, it's for education. And I just feel as though in all parts of my life, if you surround yourself with people that you admire, like Julie and Heidi, then, you'll move in their direction, and you'll be influenced by these people who have good intentions, strong convictions, and are interested in building something and moving forward, in an innovative and positive way. So I'm very careful about who I spend time with. I'm very careful of whose beliefs I adopt or subscribe to, and very protective of my time. So I just really feel like, you can get in with some people who don't align, their beliefs don't align with mine, and that's fine. They don't have to, but I just don't have to spend time with them. So I think in all areas of my life, I've become very critical with who and where I spend my time and what I spend my time on. And I'm just excited that Consilium is a part of that.
Oh, well, thank you. We're excited to have you be part of us.
Thank you.
100%. And I also just got to say, I can't resist, hearing you talk about that. I think that modeling for the people that you work with is huge, because in my experience, there are a lot of people that I've worked with who come to me sort of as a divorce consultant, as an attorney, without a strong network of friends, either reliant on a spouse's friendships or sort of having family across the country or feeling quite isolated. And I think, helping someone rebuild or build that foundation is a part of what Consilium attends to. And I think, people mistake the transition through divorce when they see it as just a legal process, because it is so much more. And I think, at the end of the day, people get a divorce judgment, if they're getting divorced. But what resonates long after that are the repercussions of all of the sort of unspoken contracts and moves that haven't actually been necessarily, delineated on paper, but the moves that people make in their personal lives.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
So, Gabrielle, tell us a little bit about your book. Marriage is about love, divorce is about money. So,
yes.
Why should people read this? What does it offer to someone who's either contemplating divorce, or a lawyer who's helping people with get divorced? What is helpful about this book, and why did you write it? And what message would you send to people that are interested in it?
Well, thank you for bringing it up. I wrote it because, as I said earlier, I had a lot of information, and I just wanted to put it on paper. And there are a lot of places you can find a little bit of information, especially on the internet. And you can find, but there wasn't anywhere you could sort of find it all in one place. I divided the book into 3 components: before, during, and after divorce. So for people who are contemplating, navigating, or recovering from the divorce process, there's something in the book for you. So it's sort of, how do you approach it? Building your team. Your team consists of your therapist, your CDFA, or your financial person, and your attorney. And what are the different ways that a financial person gets paid? What do you look for in an attorney? Don't use your attorney as a therapist. Don't use your financial person as an attorney. And as it goes, you don't want to use your therapist as either your financial person or your attorney. So sort of as you're building your team, what are you looking for and in these different professionals, and make sure they all get along. I won't take on a client until I have the go ahead from the attorney, because if you have to keep me hidden in the background, or if they don't like the fact that there's someone else involved, then I'm going to be, I'm going to be weakened, and it's just not going to be helpful for the client. They're constantly going to be grappling with what I'm saying versus, even if it's aligned with what the attorney was saying. But in any case, and then in the middle, it's sort of get your ducks in a row, get your finances, open a Quicken account, open a Dropbox account, change your email, start a whole new platform. Don't go out on social media with your new beau. Don't put your kids necessarily out on social media. Don't necessarily show all of your Disney pictures on social media. Let's get past this divorce, and then you can do some things that are more appropriate. And then what happens after the divorce? You have to do your estate planning. You have to, do all of your asset transfers. What is a quadro, the qualified domestic relations order? So it just sort of lays out for people in across the country that these are the steps to take, these are the things to think about, and it's just was intended to be an overview, an educational piece for every portion of the process, so that what's coming, because sometimes people have no idea that they have to do their estate plan all over again. And that's an important thing that you have to do. I've had people come to me after their spouse never changed the 401k, just beneficiary. And so, for some people that's good, for other people that's not good. And, it creates problems, but there are just because you're done doesn't mean you're done, because you're just really beginning. It's sort of like commencement college, or how they call it commencement. It's really the beginning. Yeah. It's not the end of college. It's the beginning of your new life. So the end of your divorce is maybe the end of the process, but it's a beginning of something entirely, hopefully, better and more fruitful and productive. So, and I have the podcast. I started the podcast because I was getting a lot of questions around putting these components, these principles to work. And I thought, we'll start a podcast so that we can, really delve into page 72 and some things to think about, and really talk. So that was the goal.
And what I love about your book, Gabrielle, is that it is both at a very high level, just overview, but also very in-depth, practical, hands-on advice. So it's just a perfect mix of that. So thank you for writing that. Yeah. And if people want to learn more about you and about what you offer, how can they get in touch with you? What's the best way to find you?
Okay, so they can visit my website at www.gabrielleclemens.com. Okay. You can buy my book there. You can buy the book on Amazon. You can Google me, call me at my office, or call me on my cell, which is 781-910-4770. It's my personal cell. I'll pick it up. If I don't, leave a message. I'm probably on the phone. So, call me, text me.
All right. Well, Gabrielle, thank you again so much for your time today. It's been a delight. I
Thank
know we're
you.
very, very happy to have you be one of the really founding members in many ways of the Consilium Process and the Consilium Institute. And we can't wait to see what you do next.
Well, thank you for creating the Consilium Institute and the training. It has been a component of this process that it just didn't exist before you created it. So it really is closing the gap between the financial and the legal, and really addresses the philosophical and the emotional components of the divorce process. So I'm grateful to you, Heidi and Julie, for everything that you have done to make this happen. So
Well, gratitude to you.
kudos
I mean,
to
all
you.
your help doing it, but also because
My pleasure.
well, if people don't apply it, it's just a philosophy, right?
Yeah, we're applying it. We're applying it
I know. I love
Every
it.
day, every day. All
every
right.
day.
Yay. Well,
Fantastic.
thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. All right.
My
Come back and
pleasure.
talk to us again.
Anytime.
All right.
Love it.
Thank you.